Hello everyone, welcome back to Founders Korner. Today I have an amazing guest. I know every single one of my guests have been amazing, but this one's especially amazing. Her name is Emma, and she is here from Vancouver, and she works with a software company called Sweat. And today we're going to be talking about go-to marketing strategies and just marketing strategies as a whole for startups to engage in before they get started. So let's all welcome Emma. Emma, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
Good.
Excellent. Emma has been dealing with some cold weather in Calgary, so this is an absolute shock for you.
I know. I'm missing the rain a little bit, I think.
Oh yeah,
but
rain.
The sunshine is nice.
Okay, good. All right. So Emma, tell me, first give me your backstory. What's your history? Let's go into that detail.
Yeah, so I've been marketing for years at this point. I've been in everything from like big major corporations to small agencies, but I sort of found my niche now working in software companies and small tech startups.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And that's like 99% of our listeners
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
So that's good. So what made you choose marketing over any other degree?
Oh, wow. I think I was just really pragmatic.
Uh-huh. Nice.
I was like, I'm definitely not going into finance and I want to do something creative.
Yeah,
so I ended up in
finance seems always a very boring choice to me.
It does, especially I also learned very quickly that it was not my forte because I barely passed. So
yeah, it seems like most people that don't like finance, they love marketing, or vice versa. If they hate marketing, they love finance.
But ironically, marketing has become more and more numbers driven,
Data-driven,
and
right.
like it borders a little bit on finance, and to some extent, depending on if you're going like growth marketing or things that are like really like numbers and data driven. So it's. Yeah.
So that being said, you are in a director of growth marketing at Sweat right now.
I am. It's like my first
so
sort
you
of
are
growth
in
marketing.
Finance.
I know. I don't want to say I'm really in finance, but like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, data-driven marketing.
Data-driven marketing. Yes. I know. It's like I went into marketing to avoid that part, and somehow.
Yeah, somehow you still ended up there. Isn't that exactly. That's the irony of it all. So our founders, whenever we talk to them or whenever we engage with them, we always notice, especially when they're engaging with us to build their product out. It's funny, we had Bryce on our channel and Philippe a couple of days ago as well. And we talked about how, problem statements is one thing that they always miss. Like they always go to the solution and not the problem. They don't do their research. They kind of put these blinders on. They're like, no, I know what this is going to look like. So they don't do enough research. So that was with Philip. And now what I love about your conversation with me was it's also, they don't really take in consideration marketing when they're engaging with the product, right? They're kind of like too hectically focused on product. So tell me what you meant by that.
Yeah, so we all know like, oh, you need to find product market fit.
Yeah,
right?
That's a standard. That's the buzzword, like AI.
And then we'll figure out some channels after the fact.
Throw things at the wall.
At the wall and see what sticks. To be fair, that idea of throwing a few things out there to see what works is a valid strategy. But the thing is if you don't think about how you are going to go to market when you're building your product, picking your target market, you might build yourself into a bit of between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. Right? You've invested all of this money to go after this certain audience only to discover that it's really hard to find them. It's really hard to target them. Yes. It's really like maybe the audience you thought you were going after, the better audience is actually the segment that's like not so interested in how you built the product. Yep. You might find that your price point isn't on cue. Exactly. You're like, I can only charge X for this target market, but the cost to acquire them is significantly higher.
So it's funny you say that because with our Founders course, Founders Academy, we literally go through that exact same process, but on the product side, because I think you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't look at it in terms of it's not just marketing. Yeah. It's very much like marketing and your buyer's journey through that product, because that is built into it. Like, think about it, like when they sign up for a trial, for example, you're still on that journey. You're still part of the marketing concept. And a lot of times developers do not talk to marketing people.
Well, It's also too this idea that people think marketing is, oh, you guys just write some blogs and maybe do a video, do some podcasts or stuff, and then everything comes.
Only the fourth P, the promotion side. That's
exactly,
right.
But one of the biggest things I think founders can really think about as they're doing this is really understanding what market, like what target market they're going after and what ideal customer they're going after.
So what does that look like? Let's say I know nothing. How would I even approach that concept?
Well, one idea I've always really liked is, I mean, every founder has an idea. I have this idea and it's going to help solve this product. Like, hopefully they're solving a specific problem for a specific group of people.
Yeah.
Not just like, this would be a cool product. But let's just say they have a target market in mind. Yeah. There's only going to be a small percentage of that target market that can use the product in its form when they first launch.
Right.
They can't go, like, let's just say you're going after florists. I don't know, like some sort of software.
That's a great segment.
Yeah. Well, all florists will not be able to use your product right off the bat because it's probably going to be an MVP. You need to build on it. You're trying to probably solve a particular pain point. You can only go after, are you going after the enterprise?
Yep.
Are you going after the small mom and pop shops? Are you going after the established ones? Like who?
You are limited in resources. I agree 100%.
Right? But each of those different markets will require a different type of go-to-market strategy. And you may want to build the product in a certain way to tailor it for them. I
agree 100%. And that's where I was going with is like, you know, like for example, mom and pop shops, like you don't need enterprise sales. No. It's all about marketing. It's all about how to do your promotion. But at the same time, it's all about your product too. Because they sign up for a trial. Okay, how do we convert them? How do we see success with that trial? Okay, at what point should we engage with them automatically to, you know, because you got to automate these things. With mom and pop shops, there's too much volume. Yeah. Whereas with enterprise, it's severely, it's very heavy on sales. Yeah. Relationship building. Taking them for coffee. You can't really do as much marketing there, right?
Exactly. Well, because the buying process is so complex.
Yes.
Like is your product complex? You probably need sales to explain what's going on, which means you probably can't use like a really low price point, right? Is your product completely new? Do people even know about it? If they don't know about it, something brand new to the market, search probably isn't a great channel for you, and you have to look at more expensive channels.
Because no one's searching on it. How would they? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Are you going after a horizontal market, right? Like you solve like one of the hardest sort of ways to approach I've seen someone do or a company do is going after a horizontal product, problem, meaning it can serve all these different industries.
Okay.
And it's SMB.
Oh, wow.
There is no way to target these people.
Yeah, that's impossible.
It's extremely hard, right? Yeah. So if you we can go to all marketers in a certain company all across all these industries, or we can go after all these this one industry and it serves like all of them in some way. Like you need to kind of think through, how are we going to find these people? And is it viable?
And we always tell people, like, pick your niche.
Yeah.
Pick one single niche. Focus on that niche. How do I get that niche? How do I market to that niche? Because once you understand one person, it's a lot easier to market to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also the other thing to think about is that you don't just need product market fit, you also need product channel fit. Like if anyone's ever heard of Brian Balfour, he's been built up the Reforge communities and things like that. And he has a great, he had this whole article, which is great on it. But you can control your product, but you can't control the channels. You don't control Google. You don't control Facebook.
Nope.
You don't control your customers' word of mouth.
You have no control over anything other than your product. I agree with that. Yeah.
Right? And so you need to think about, okay, I have to play by their rules. What are their rules? Does it make sense for my product and my price point and my pricing and all of that kind of stuff?
And so, you know, we always tell our founders, look, you gotta do your competitive research to find out pricing. Like pricing is one of the hardest things, in my opinion, to get right. And it takes a lot of trial and error. Yeah. My biggest issue I see founders is they always price themselves too low.
Oh yeah, they do it all the time.
Right? Where they price themselves like, oh, I don't know if I can get that much. And that's really what hurts their cash flow, is they're not priced high enough.
Well, you know what I think was a really interesting learning? It was I did the Growth Hackers conference, and they were doing this whole thing about pricing models. And it was Patrick, I can't remember his name right now, from ProfitWell. But he was talking about, they had done a study of like hundreds or thousands of different SaaS startups, right? And they found that the ones that were most successful were probably running pricing experiments every quarter.
Yes.
Whereas most are doing it every 3 years.
Because you don't know. You don't know until you know.
And they feel guilty about maybe increasing the prices don't get me wrong, it's not like you're changing your whole pricing structure every quarter because that'd be bananas.
Yeah.
But you can be running.
And also very unrealistic.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you have a sales team, right, you can soft test a new pricing package to prospects. You can change which features you've packaged things if it's feasible with your backend.
And I think at the beginning when you first start, it makes sense because you need to get people to buy in. So you need the innovators. And the innovators are usually the ones that are like willing to jump in, but like kind of like, okay, I better get a good deal for this.
Yeah. Well, also too, like just an initial go-to-market strategy, if you're doing like say B2B, right? Sales is probably going to be your first every founder should be their first sales rep.
100%.
Right? And in that is a go-to-market strategy. And then eventually you hit a point where like, well, I need more leads.
Yes.
And then you start looking at marketing, then you start looking at product-led virality kind of things. But you have to think about that. Like if you want to use like virality, Calendly is a really great example of product-led growth through virality, but it needs to be simple. It needs to be transactional.
Well, that is the most simplest of the forms of products.
Exactly. It needs to be broad.
It's literally a calendar scheduling app.
If you're niche and you're, like
and
it's complex.
They haven't expanded much out of it. Like they've added like little like features to it. Yeah. But all they've done is make it easier to log in, sign up. Like it's really just more on like how to reduce the friction as much as possible. Because I see a lot of startups, they'll get traction somewhere and they'll be like, this is amazing. Let's move on to our next product idea. And then you're like, you just got this. Like drive that forward. Like how do you service that?
I know. Like going after all the channels all at once. It's like seeing someone do all the social platforms all at once. I'm like, no.
Yes. And with only by yourself, like with one person doing it all, right? So
there's no way that you can do multiple channels, especially if you have limited resources.
Always.
So
especially in the marketing department.
Oh, especially.
Most startups are really heavily focused on the dev side. Yeah. Because without it, they would die. That is their product. And then you're totally right on the fact that the founder needs to be the sales guy, because honestly, like if they're not, they're dead in the water. Well, like how do you sell it?
Yeah, you don't know.
Investors too. You're selling the product to me as the investor.
Yeah, you have to know the customer, and sales are some of the best people to understand what's happening with the customers, what works, what pitch works, what
so
value props
work. Do you think
work.
Is that why there's so much friction between like sales? Like sales and marketing to me get the highest budgets for things, because you honestly wouldn't survive otherwise. But then dev makes the same argument as like, well, we also need the budget because we need to make sure the product exists for the sales and marketing team.
100%. But it also depends on how you're, like, what is driving your growth and what is your go-to-market strategy.
Right.
If you try to do everything all at once, you're not really thinking about it as a machine. You're thinking about it as all of these separate parts.
Yes.
And when
isolation,
and that can make
sometimes even sales
work.
And marketing are against each other.
Like sometimes.
Fair. For good organizations, they should be together. I agree with you.
I know. I mean, that's
I like how you said that. Sometimes? What do you mean sometimes?
I personally like setting up a structure where more sales and marketing are working on the same projects together or in tandem.
But how does that, like, distribution is marketing, and salespeople are distribution. So it's like, I don't understand how like organizations don't work together in that sense. Like okay, you've worked with the bigger companies. Yes. Actually, this is a great question for me to ask you. And this is not really tailored to the founders, but maybe while they're growing, they'll understand. But like, why is there a battle between the sales team and the marketing team?
It's because they've been focused on very different metrics.
Okay.
So marketing is all about leads, and then sales be like, but you're not giving me good leads. And then marketing is like, yeah, but you're not closing them properly.
Nice.
And
the Spider-Man pointing at each other.
Exactly.
Kind of thing? Okay.
And if everyone is focused on revenue, like one of the best ways to align these two teams is to give them shared metrics.
Right.
To a certain extent, right?
It has to be a universal goal. You're right. At Korner, that's all we do. We do KPIs. Yeah. Of course, like we have to do KPIs, but one big thing that we do is we work on a single goal metric. So it's like, here's where the company has to go, and every team has to build their goal metric around that, and that's the golden metric. Yeah. Right? So that to me doesn't make any sense. I've never set up my companies like that, and it just doesn't make sense to me.
No, and it's really easy, like when it's a small team, to bring that cohesion. I think that separation has come for bigger companies, because it's very hard to bring a sales and marketing team together on everything if it's a larger organization, because they do work very differently.
Yes. But I can also tell you that like there is no universal goal.
No.
Like it literally is like, you guys give me as many leads as you can, give me qualified leads. These guys close as many leads as you possibly can. And then these guys are like, well, my customers are all asking for these different features. And then they go back to literally, it's like, it's a vicious cycle, right?
It is. Like I think there's benefits when you have teams like hyper focused on one element.
Yes.
But you need to find that, whether it's a bigger company and you need to segment your, like silo your teams a little bit, there does come a time to do it. I mean, you can't all collaborate together constantly, because that'd be really slow.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some way to bring that cohesion together. One way that has sort of popped up is like the idea of a growth team, which is a cross-functional team. I have attempted to create like growth machines with like the whole departments, like your sales and marketing all together, but it usually gets bloated, and most of your marketers and sales guys and whoever don't have the growth skill set of hypotheses, validation, and all of that, and it doesn't work. I think if I were to do it all over again, in the early days of a startup, everyone's a growth team. It's a cross-functional team that's all working together. You're dead. Exactly. Yeah. But you're all working cross-functionally together. Your product guys are talking to your sales guys, talking to your marketing guys.
They're all in the same room.
Exactly. Yeah. But once you get into that bigger like area where things are getting a little siloed, one way to like test new strategies is making a little micro team inside the company, and they go in to try and fix processes within those segments, cool. And it becomes way more nimble.
So one of my ideas was to throw everybody and separate everybody out.
Throw everybody and separate everybody out.
Throw them into a single like area.
Yeah.
And like there is no like sales department, or like, you know what I mean? Like there is like, you're a sales department, sure, but you're scattered throughout the organization. That way you're forced to talk to other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe empathize a little bit like with developers and what they have to go through, and QA. And
there's pros and cons to all of that, right? Too.
Then you don't get collaboration within your own team. That's the other issue.
I know. But I mean, in the early days, the team already will naturally operate as like a growth team, because it's so small. Start with sales, especially for the B2B side. But again, think about that target market. And think about the product, your product. Is it complex? Is it simple? This is going to help guide you in how you want to go to market. But you need to, it's almost like a sanity check as you're building your product.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, how are we going to sell this?
Yeah, go back to the drawing board and see how it relates.
You know, does this make, like, can we use virality? Can we use user-generated content? Do we need to be product-led? Can we be product-led?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think the number one thing they need to do is figure out the journey.
Yep.
And I think what you just said is the perfect sense as to why you need to do the journey. So if I were to ask you right now, hey, Emma, I'm planning to start my own business tomorrow, and here's my idea. Okay, let's go with the florist idea. Yeah. What would you suggest as a friend to a friend or a colleague to a colleague? What steps should I take right off the bat?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things I think work well is finding a product advisory board.
Interesting.
I don't know. Have you talked about this on the podcast before?
Never.
Okay.
I mean, technically Korner is your product advisory board.
I actually mean this in a different sense, though.
Oh, okay,
I do.
Go.
So a product advisory board is, say you have this idea, like, okay, I want to go sell to florists. Okay. I'm going to build operational software or something.
Okay, sure.
A POS system.
Yeah.
And
let's say it's like a delivery system for florists. Okay, perfect.
Okay, yes, love it. So I have this idea. I think it's super cool. I know these guys are feeling this pain point.
Okay.
Try and find a group of
florists,
8, 10 florists, and pitch them the idea.
Okay.
And ask them, hey, we're trying to solve this problem. Do you have like 30 minutes every few weeks, or 15 minutes with me every few weeks? I want to see if this actually works, and if it's a solution, is this something you want to try?
That's actually hilarious you say that, because I've had multiple people approach me personally and be like, Sep, I got this great idea. And every single time I'm like, okay, go find me 5 people that were willing to pay for it. how many people do you think actually come back with the 5?
Exactly, and it's one of the things I love about it is it helps you validate who your target market actually is. It's not just florists in general. There's probably going to be a subset of them that really care about it. Those are going to be your early adopters, the ones who are really tech savvy. Usually go for the tech savvy ones, right? Not the ones who just got their first iPhone.
So I have to click here.
Exactly.
By the way, just so any founders, just so you guys want to know, most of the user issues, and you and I were talking about this today, most of the user issues in software is sign in. So let that settle in.
And it's
because that's crazy to both of us. You were shocked by that statement. You were like, "There's no way. How is that even possible?"
And then you talked about 2 people here at Corridor that struggle with it. I'm just like, oh,
it's
guys.
insane. We call them Grandpa Bob and Ari. Literally, the both of them, for some reason, cannot log into systems, and it's always their fault. I don't understand. I just don't get it.
So, but like going after like those tech savvy like florists, it's not just can they use software. They're going to be the most excited about something new.
Yes.
They're going to be the most likely to risk or invest the time on something that may or may not work for them because they're so excited about like, oh, this could be so neat.
Right.
Right? It's that motivation of why they would say yes. Right? Because you go through, like how to avoid the, the big I'm like,
are you talking about the buyer persona?
No,
like the
crossing the
innovators?
chasm. I could see the visual in my head, and I don't remember the name. Crossing the chasm. You get those innovators in the beginning, and then you get the early adopters, and like you go.
Then it becomes.
You go for those early adopters, right? And so you get to validate your idea. You get some initial feedback.
How do you find early adopters? I mean, fine. I walk in. If you don't have an iPhone, I'm walking out. Yeah. It's fair enough. But like, it's not that simple, is it?
Sometimes it's you could be like, hey, you go to a florist website. Does it look like it was built in the 90s?
Oh, that's a great point. Actually, that's a good point, yeah.
Right? You can kind of tell what's going on.
If they have e-commerce, then they're definitely early adopters. Good point. So you have to find the things that will basically define them as technologically savvy enough to be able to engage with you.
You're also probably like, you only need a handful of them. We're not talking a lot. It's not. And once you kind of know who you're going after, you can be like, okay, so where do these guys hang out? Do they go to events? Do they Google everything?
Right.
Do they avoid all things because they're a small business and they have no time for anything? Right? And then this starts to give you an idea of how you might reach these guys. And on top of that, now you've got, if it goes well, you've got some customer testimonials, you've got some case studies, you've got all these things.
And they can also help guide the product.
Exactly.
As well, right? I know we had a client who was building something for literally very small SME, like I'm talking like 1 to 10.
Yep.
And it was basically, they had products available to them, but the number one issue was they're construction guys.
Yeah.
The number one issue for them was I can't manage anything on my phone. Yeah. Which is ironic because most construction guys are not very phone based, but because he's always on site.
Yep.
The guy has his own truck. He has maybe an admin at home, or probably a wife, or and I hilariously say all wives become assistants to founders because that's like, or husbands, whatever. Like if it's a female founder, the guy becomes the assistant, right? But you have one guy, and he was telling them, he was saying, look, all these softwares do so much, and that's great. I don't need any of it.
Yeah.
I just need a solid CRM system and a solid, like an easy way for me to manage invoicing and just like send it off, and I don't have to deal with it, and just be able to manage my workforce. And it's like 3 trucks. That's all I need to control. And you'd be surprised how many people he got on board before we're still working on the product, but he already has pre-sales.
And that's the thing. So it's such a great, using a product advisory board helps you de-risk your idea, de-risk your product design, and de-risk your go-to-market strategy up front with very little, like you don't have to invest anything. You're just asking for people's help.
And to basically bring what Bryce says, develop a product around the problem.
Exactly.
Rather than just a simple solution.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Anything else that you think that founders should do? I mean, that product advisory is awesome. I'm going to use that phrase if that's okay with you.
Oh, so yeah, it's an actual term.
It's an actual term?
You can Google it.
Well, now I feel uneducated. But that's why we do these podcasts, right? Because I love it because I get different perspectives from everybody. And I get to learn from different mindsets. Like we've done a bunch of marketing now. And like when I was talking to Philip, for example, it was amazing learning from him. And we did an episode with Wish, who's our AI guy. Mm-hmm. And it was just fun listening to him talk, even though you don't really understand half the words he says. But like, it's like you get what he's trying to express as to what the difference between an algorithm and AI is. So it's always good to listen to other people and just hear their perspective. And in this case, product advisory board.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell that to every single one of our customers now.
Yeah.
You're like, do you have a product advisory board? No, you should get one.
Yeah.
They're really good. Emma, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Again, Emma came from Vancouver, not necessarily for the podcast, but she definitely stuck around for the podcast. So I really appreciate that about her. Everybody at Founders Korner, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, comments, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to respond to them. Again, this is literally designed for you, the founders, to learn and understand where you can take your business to fly.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Until next time, Corridor out.